As many of you already know, Pablo Torre has been releasing a series of podcast episodes exposing the circumvention of the salary cap that the Clippers have allegedly been doing with Kawhi's contract over the duration of 3 to 4 years. But even though Pablo has been, lining up all the evidence in front of us, there's a reason that I choose personally not to address this whole investigation myself. I personally enjoy what Pablo's doing right now, which is basically lining up all the detractors, having some of them be interviewed by him, and then later on releasing further evidence that contradicts what a lot of the detractors are claiming happened. It's great. I love it. And despite all this, I will not engage with this conversation or choose to even discuss the investigation further for multiple reasons. And I'll attack this from two angles personally. From a personal side, right, on my end, why I don't be making videos as much as I used to. And then also I'll be attacking it from the angle of, the investigation itself and, the likelihood that the Clippers would actually get punished to the severity that they should be. So first, there's the personal angle of, I just haven't been uploading as much. And part of it is because, obviously, as I said before, the views have been going down, but also creatively, I just haven't been as inspired to make videos. Not just that, but the process, the workflow has just gotten much more harder to endure. I've basically associated a lot of what I do on YouTube with negativity and the emotions that they bring, right? The negative emotions that bring. And obviously that's going to make it hard for you to work on something for a long duration of time, which is how long these videos take to make, right? If you don't have the motivation, not just that, but the emotional bandwidth to keep going with it, right? So a video that could take 2 weeks to make would take 4 times as much to make because there's just so much more resistance when it comes to working on these videos than there used to be. And so obviously that's part of the problem. Also, mentally, that obviously fatigues you much quicker. So the amount of work that you're likely to get done in a certain day is basically reduced to like half, if not a fourth of what you would be accustomed to when I was initially going into this full time, right? So from a personal angle, look, it's just me. I'm having to rebuild those connections, those positive connections with the process of making these videos again. That's basically why I've taken a bit of a step back, right? I have to build those positive connections in order to be able to do the work again in a much more healthier way, right? And not rush these videos like I used to, right? Not, just bulldoze all of willpower that I can muster, right? Like that can't be done, right? Like I've been thinking about making a Kawhi video over the last year, and I haven't been able to even get myself to do it. I script a lot of these videos nowadays to try to make it better for me in terms of the recording process. And it's just been hard for me to script this one, the Kawhi video. I don't know. There's something about it I just can't do it. And so I just, I put it in the back shelf like I do with a lot of videos. And obviously a Kawhi video would be great to put out now with this whole scandal now looming. But again, like I said, so much of the struggles is, mental, internal. It's basically me going to war with myself every day to get some work done, right? Something that used to be a passion of mine now has become a struggle, has become dreadful, right? That's not healthy. That needs to be fixed, right? So, I'm working on it steadily. Hopefully, in the future, I can put out more videos more consistently, right? So that covers the basis on my end. But that doesn't explain why I can't just put out a second channel video addressing this, right? Addressing the BS coming out of the Clippers brass, right? Because clearly, Steve Ballmer, he claims to have gotten scammed, but Pablo's put out more evidence that, that's unlikely, right? A guy that gets scammed by somebody wouldn't be going and paying more money to invest in the same company that he allegedly got scammed from years prior. And obviously, we know that Steve Ballmer is not shy to spend that money. And that's part of the reason why the NBA has had to ratify CBA to make it harder on owners to spend. The main argument that people defending the Clippers have used is basically that there's not enough evidence that Pablo's bringing up here. It's circumstantial, a lot of it, and plausible deniability, right? Ballmer, right? There is nothing concrete that says that he deliberately was circumventing the cap, right? They treat this as if he is in the court of law, he's being sued. And it makes sense because Aspiration as a company did get sued. And, that was a federal case, right? And Joe Sandberg, the CEO, was guilty of fraud, right? He is guilty federally of fraud. But the NBA's rules against circumvention of the salary cap makes it pretty clear that there doesn't need to be that much proof of circumvention being done, right? What Pablo has dished out is enough for the NBA to step in and, punish the Clippers. Which brings me now to my second angle of this, why I won't cover this topic as much. All right, this is the only video you'll probably see up until the verdict of the NBA's, laid out for what the Clippers are going to be disciplined with or not disciplined, which is basically what I'm predicting is going to happen. The NBA is going to either give the Clippers a slap on the wrist or the investigation, quote unquote, will drag out for so long that this story will be long forgotten. And, quite frankly, Pablo's work will go unnoticed in the NBA's eyes. And look, this is the apathetic part of me talking. This is the cynic in me talking, right? The NBA, the way it works, the way they're structured. Adam Silver is the commissioner. Yes, he does oversee the league and how it's ran. The way it works, the board of governors is set up to where all 30 team owners, if they have a problem with the way Adam Silver runs the league, they can vote him out. Okay, so if Adam Silver does something that the owners aren't fond of, the board of governors can meet up, which is basically comprised of all 30 team owners, and a chairman from each team can vote to basically oust Adam Silver. Adam Silver works for the owners. It's the way it's structured, right? It's like a shareholders meeting to vote on whether or not to keep the CEO, right? That's basically what we have here. Basically, the owners have a lot of leverage when it comes to situations like these. Adam Silver, he can say all the right things and say they're going to investigate the case. They're going to make sure that, they get to the bottom of this. But Steve Ballmer is the richest owner in the NBA. The NBA has a vested interest in having Steve Ballmer still invest his money into the Clippers to make the team as, thrive as much as possible. The NBA has a vested interest in attracting more owners as rich as Ballmer, of course, as they have the last couple of years. The Lakers' new ownership group happens to also own the Dodgers, right? They're attracting these bigger, right, owners that are, either private equity or, just quite frankly, have a holdings group that has access to billions and multiple billions of dollars, more money than previous owners, right? That's why a lot of these owners are selling, not just because they're selling high, right, on an investment they've made decades prior, but it indicates the way the NBA is shifting, the future of the NBA. Where is the money going to be made in the NBA? Where's the increase in money going to come from, right? It feels like they've maxed out ticket revenue. They've maxed out a lot of these, things to where if they increase the price even more, how much more people are they willing to bleed out to where it'll still be a good return on investment?
The reason I sold most of the team because
why did you sell it?
To compete now with the new collective bargaining agreement, you see all these teams building real estate, casinos, and all these big real estate empires. I'm like, that's not me. I'm not into real estate. Like when it was tech and media, golden. That's my competency. Yeah. But to go build and put up, $1 billion or $2 billion or have to borrow, no, man, that's not me. And that just doesn't fit me.
Take it from Mark Cuban himself, right? The NBA, right, and these owners, they're going to have to find ways to increase that revenue that they make. The recent media deal that the NBA, and the CBA, right, they've ratified that, they've signed it, and it's given the NBA a lot of money. But beyond that, what is going to add to these owners' investments going up? What is going to add to that? Real estate, right? And that's going to require a lot more money to invest in the short term, of course. And that's something that the NBA is going to want to retain as best as they can. Steve Ballmer basically investing money out of his pocket to build the Intuit Dome. You think the NBA isn't looking at that and thanking their lucky stars that the Clippers basically have an upgraded arena, an upgraded viewing experience to watching basketball games? You don't think the NBA is like, bro, this guy Steve Ballmer cannot leave our hands. He has to retain ownership as much as he can until somebody richer than him buys the team eventually, right? You don't think the NBA is thinking to themselves, how can we get Steve Ballmer to basically get out of the situation without it costing his team too much, to where he'll still be able to own a team, he'll still be able to compete, and basically, this is the cynical part of me thinking nothing's gonna happen from this, right? No, not much is gonna come from this. Why invest time? Why make a video dedicated to exposing the Clippers further and outlining what Pablo has already been outlining himself to make it digestible for people to know? Oh, this is what they're doing. Oh, these are the things that people are saying on Twitter, but no, 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 that's not exactly what's going on, right? What's the point of me doing all that? When in all likelihood the NBA is gonna just hand out a slap on the wrist. They're just gonna fine him a couple $1,000,000 that is basically equivalent to a couple dollars of change for Steve Ballmer's rich pockets, right? This guy's so rich that $7 million in a fine is it's like you fining somebody $20 for a parking ticket, right? That doesn't happen. They usually fine you way more than $20 for a parking violation. That's basically me saying the NBA is going to basically do nothing. Even though Steve Ballmer is pretty much guilty, it's pretty obvious that he's guilty. And each new week that Pablo drops a podcast, this interview here from Steve Ballmer to Ramona Shelburne is aging poorer and poorer and poorer by the day. It's really funny. Quite frankly, I'm shocked that he even addressed it on ESPN, right? He could have just ignored it because, let's be honest, the NBA is probably not going to do much here. So, honestly, bro, if Adam Silver actually does lay the hammer down, voids Kawhi's contract to where he's a free agent, can no longer re-sign with the Clippers, he would have to be signed by another team, hopefully not a California team, but we all know that's most likely the teams he's going to sign to. Look, I'm not going to say it. Actually, I'll say it. Kawhi's a Laker, bro. If this whole thing does actually happen, he gets waived. Kawhi is a Laker. He's going to be with LeBron and Luka. He'll correct his mistake in 2019 of not signing with them by doing it now, right? When things are actually muddied in terms of his contract situation, he can sign to a mid-level or something. Instead of the Lakers going after Andrew Wiggins, they got their perfect player at the 3. Wow. What a beautiful league this is. The Lakers building a contending team with beautiful moves, man. Rob Pelinka, GM of the year. Okay, let me stop trolling. Yeah, that's about it, bro. That covers the basis as far as I'm concerned as to why I don't want to cover this quite yet. Maybe the verdict comes out and I feel differently, but I think until then, I'm not gonna say much about this topic. But be on the lookout. I might address the state of journalism in the league and how people perceive journalists like Pablo Torre as opposed to a journalist like Shams, as I covered earlier in another video that I released recently. It's a disaster. It really is a disaster, man. They're calling this guy a snitch. Yeah, I'll get into that at some point very soon. Bye-bye.